All right, our next speaker actually is I think going to really wake everybody up in the audience. The last time I saw Simon was on a stage in Copenhagen about 3 weeks ago for the Global Fashion Summit, which is the world's leading summit now for retailers and brands on sustainability. Recognizing that the apparel industry is the second largest polluter on the face of the earth behind petroleum production. And it's a great effort for people to get together, big brands in the US and around the world, to make a difference. But the thing that I wanted to tell you about, Simon walked out on that stage in front of about 1,300 retailers and brands. And instead of just talking about sustainability, he walked out on the stage, he looked at the audience, and he said, you know what? It is your fault. You guys need to own it. You're the polluters. You're the ones that have been doing it for the last 100 years. And if you aren't going to fix it, it's your fault. It's on you. So he's very provocative. He is the former dean of fashion at Parsons. He's a designer. He's a writer. He's a lecturer. He's a curator. I would say he's a provocateur. He's a former designer from Nike and Polo and a number of really great companies. And it's my pleasure to introduce Simon Collins.
Everyone. So look, as Rick, that's very kind, thank you. I can't possibly live up to that. I talk a lot on stage, and people sometimes invite me because they think I'll get people sort of excited or motivated, and that's terrible because that makes me sound like a motivational speaker. But on the way over here, I was thinking about that, and I thought, I'm really fucked off. I am. I'm serious. I'm really fucked off because I feel like I'm surrounded by mediocrity and nastiness and shit design and just fucking like, ugh. And I wish I had a punchline, right? But I'm just fucked off. So the good news, though, is, and it's not really a punchline, but the good news is I'm going to tell you about what I think you have to do to fix that. Because we are assailed by it, and that's the terrible thing, right? We are assailed by awfulness and mediocrity and bullshit with buzzwords attached to it as though it's a new idea, and all that. But the good news is that that's not the competition. If that's the best they've got, then people are waving at me at the back. Should I levitate? The good news is that if that's the competition, you can win. Right? That's the motivational bit, I suppose. But the fact is, we should be surrounded by beauty. We should be surrounded by better design. We should be. It's not that hard. You don't have to be a designer, because you are all designers already. Every single person in this room is a designer, and you're designing all the time. You designed your way to work, you designed your outfit, your haircut, and everything I say will help you in what you're doing, whether you're running a company or at college or going on a date. The other day, I gave a speech on Valentine's Day, and I turned all my nonsense about design into dating tips. And it's all just as relevant. So this is me, right? Rick was very kind to describe me. I'm a dad, that's the most important job. A designer, a DJ, a dean. I danced on stage the other day really badly. I'm a thinker, a speaker, a writer, a director, an advisor, a founder. My dad was a used car salesman, so perhaps that's, I need to add that to the list, but that's why I do what I do. And these are the places that I've worked. So anything I tell you today is not because I'm clever, because I'm definitely not. In fact, I'm the dumbest person in the room, because I can learn from all of you. But I've worked at all these places, and I've learned really smart things from them. And I learn things wherever I go. So if I've got any ability at all, it's just listening to clever people and copying what they say. See, rule number one, the most important thing, the single thing you must do is brilliance only. Just do it brilliantly. If you're going to do anything, do it brilliantly. And if you're not going to do it brilliantly, ask yourself, why are you really doing it? If you're going to make a sandwich, make a brilliant sandwich. Make a really good one that will make you feel better about your lunch. If you're going to plan a day for your kid at the weekend, do it brilliantly so your kid loves you that bit more. If you're going to do something in your company or send me a text message, do it brilliantly. Don't do it half-assed, because if you do, the person next to you will do a better job. And if you have the ability to do it better, and you could have, and you didn't, and the person next to you did, then you're fucked, aren't you? Like, you could have, you've lost. You go for an interview, you don't dress brilliantly, you've lost. You create a product, you don't do it brilliantly, you've lost. And so you have the ability to do that. No one's making you do it badly. That's why I'm so fucked off on the way over here. All this mediocrity, and no one made them do it mediocrely. This is brilliant. You want an example of brilliance? This was Lee McQueen. It was mind-blowing. Apparently, if I stand there, it doesn't work. It was mind-blowing. It was absolutely mesmerizingly brilliant. And so for me, when I'm assailed by bad taste and bad design, I like to rest my eyes on something brilliant, something beautiful. So I might look at Rick Owens' Spring 16 collection, when he had the step team dancers, when he was in Paris Fashion Week. If you haven't seen it, look it up. Rick Owens' step team. It was mind-blowing. In my office, when I used to work at Parsons, I had guardsmen's tunics. So those of you that are British amongst us will know that's the red tunic that the soldiers wear, because they're beautifully made and tailored, and they come from this checkered past, but for very interesting reasons. And it's a thing of beauty to me. And so I had that because I could rest my eyes on it when I had to put up with something I didn't enjoy. So when you're doing things brilliantly, remember that you're telling a story. And I know that that's become one of the bullshit phrases that everyone uses. So we're all storytellers. Yeah, it's all about storytelling. It is, right? It is all about storytelling. But if you say, we're all storytellers, it's all about storytelling, that's your story, and it's not a good one. Because the fact is, see, I have no idea what's going to be the next thing that comes out of my mouth. I'm the worst storyteller. The fact is, everything you do, the way you're sitting right now is telling a story. The way you did your hair, the outfit you're wearing, where you chose to sit in the room, the expression you have, whether you're staring at your phone, it's all part of your story. And I'm judging every single one of you right now. I mean, it's only fair. You're all judging me, and you should be, because judging is just another word for having an opinion. So if you know everyone's going to have an opinion on you, what's the story that you're telling? If you've got a company, what's the story you're telling? Because if you don't tell a story, I'll just read it into it anyway. So you don't have the option of not telling one. So you're already a storyteller. This is a story that I told when I was working at Parsons. This building, many of you might recognize, is no longer there. 560 7th Avenue is the Parsons building for 40 years. And we were leaving. And I'm very proud of Parsons. And so while I was there, I came up with a manifesto. And one of the lines from that manifesto was, "You never leave Parsons." And it was meant to sort of imply that no matter that you graduate, we still have you. You're like the mafia. There's only one way out, and that's dying. So when we were leaving the building, I had these big letters put in the windows. And of course, you know, I was just the dean, I wasn't the boss, and I didn't mention it to the boss, and we sort of moved out of the building, and they remained until they tore the building down. And I like it because it was, you know, provocative, but it was like, we've left the building, but no one's ever going to leave Parsons. That was our story. And when I connect with any of the thousands of students that went through when I was lucky enough to be in that role, they still come up with that. They still mention it. And that was a story, part of the story that we told. But I think perhaps an example of a successful one. Now, I talk a lot in China. And when I'm there, people often have very, very large companies, thousands of stores, and they've never thought about going overseas. And indeed, there are many companies here that have thousands of stores and have never thought about going overseas. And many people that don't really think about being international. They just don't really worry about it. So I like to show this image. And I say to people, where's it from? What is it? What nationality brand is it? Can anyone think? Anyone? It is. No, it's not. Close, but no, this lady said Spanish. It's Uniqlo. So it's Japanese, designed in Shanghai, where their sales team are, sold in America with a multitude of different people. So the reason I show that is it doesn't look Japanese, it doesn't look Chinese where it was designed, it doesn't look American. It's like Louis Vuitton, doesn't look French, Prada doesn't look Italian. You've got to think global. And the reason I say this is because it's very easy to be complacent and think, oh, it's all working quite well for me where I am, and think, oh, you know, in which case I don't have to worry about Chinese companies coming here and retailing their brands or vice versa. But the fact is you do. You have to think global all the time in everything that you do, because we're just intensely global. Thankfully, we're in New York, which is an intensely global city, so you sort of can't throw a rock without hitting someone from somewhere else, and that's what's supposed to happen. But you've got to think like that. You know, honestly, if I'm in a room with too many white people, I'm uncomfortable. It doesn't feel natural to me. It doesn't feel normal. So I think you've got to think like that. You've got to think globally. This one, I was just talking to somebody in the break about evolving. So this is my daughter when she was 2, right? We used to go for coffee at Le Pain Quotidien. And at the time, I was a creative director. I'd been in lots of different companies, Nike and Polo and things like that. Having a wonderful life, doing a great thing, loving it, every minute of it. But it wasn't getting more interesting. And I was sitting at this table, with my daughter eating a donut, and I could see two people opposite me, a young woman and a young man. And it transpired that the woman was a faculty member at Parsons and the young man was an errant student. So when he got up, I said, no, sit down. I'm going to tell you a couple of things. So I did. Maybe it was the first time I gave this speech, Rick. I don't know. But I told him a few things, and then the professor said to me, do you want to come and tell the rest of the school that? So I said, all right, yeah, why not? I don't know where Parsons is, but I'll come if you say it's good. So I went, and 6 months later, I was the dean. Now, the reason I tell you that is twofold. One, it's a celebration of New York City, because there's not another city in the world where they'd have a university that would accept some interloper from the industry to be the dean. Imagine. When I remember a certain school in the UK rang me up and said, oh, we're looking for a new dean. Would you consider talking about it? And I said, well, I have to tell you that I don't have any experience. I mean, I'm the dean right now, but I've got no experience. And they went, oh, right, okay. Well, in that case, no. And I said, that's exactly what's wrong with you. So, I'm sorry, I'm wandering a little bit. The point is that I evolved very quickly. I went from being a creative director into being the dean because it was, why, of course I can do that. Of course I can. I'm a designer. I can do anything. Anything. But any of you can if you think like a designer. What you've got to do is figure out what you need to get done and then get it done. It's really simple. And people make it so complicated with buzzwords and teams and consultants and all that. But you don't need any of that. You just need to figure out what needs to get done and then get on with it. I had a picture, when I showed this slide a little while ago in another talk, I had a picture of Toys R Us. And I didn't put it in this one because I was a bit worried that someone here might know more than I do about it. But of course, you actually know more than I do about everything I'm talking about. But the point was that they sadly disappeared very recently, at the same time as the demise of the creator. And it struck me that, that was obviously a result of online and perhaps a result of a company that didn't evolve as quickly as we must. Now, I'm the last person to tell anyone in this room how you should evolve, but you should evolve. The most dangerous thing you'll hear is, well, we've always done it like that. I read an interview with somebody, something's always going to come out of my mouth that I shouldn't say. I read an interview with somebody who is the editor of quite a famous magazine, perhaps quite a famous editor, and the person interviewing them said to them, you're going to put the First Lady on the cover of your magazine? And the reply was, well, we always have done, so I don't see why we'd stop. And I thought, oh my God, that's a terrible answer. We've always done it, so why shouldn't we? Anyway, evolve. Listen, this is a really big one, right? It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what anyone says. None of that matters. All that matters is what people hear. Now, those are completely different. Indeed, often they're unrelated. This is an ad for one of the god-awful American airlines. I don't know if it's United or Delta or American. They are, the management hate the staff, the staff hate the passengers hate each other, they hate the staff hate the management. It's a virtuous circle of hatred. And the only way you can make them happy is by not flying with them. Do you know what it's here, right? A little extra space to work or not. That was already mine. You took it off me. That now, when you're waiting to get on a plane, right? This is what I mean about it's not what you say, it's what people hear. When I'm waiting to get on a plane, if I'm not sitting at the front, they'll go, oh, we'd like to extend a welcome to our platinum members. Not you, our platinum members. You wait there. Come on. Now our gold members, still not you. Gold members, yeah. Bronze members, no, not you. Woman with child, not you. Yes, now our tapestry members, or whatever the fuck it's called. Not you. I mean, all they're saying every single time is, you're not welcome. They're more welcome than you are. Get on the plane, we'd like to extend a cordial greeting to our whatever members, not you still. So, and then they say, if you want to spend a bit more money, we'll let you get on early and put your stuff in the locker. That was already mine. When did I stop being allowed to put stuff in the locker unless I pay extra? Fuck. So, on a lighter note, right? I mean it, that's the thing, right? I'm not joking. I know it's funny, but I'm not joking. So here's a more fun example of what you say and what people hear. Do you mind if I'm a bit rude about Americans, right? Do you mind? Sorry, I'm just... So I'm going to, for the pink column, read Americans. If I say, that's a very brave proposal, some Americans might think I'm saying, you've got courage. But what I mean is, you're an idiot. If I say, that's very interesting, you might think it's actually interesting. But what I mean is, you're an idiot. So, and why I put that up there is because I'm English, but I've lived here 20 years and I love this city. I'm a very proud New Yorker. I respect where I am. I don't use ambiguous English terms unless I'm being obvious about what I'm saying. Because I'm aware that it's not what I say, it's what you hear. Value. Value, right? Create value, not profit. Think about that. If you're running a company, you've got loads of suppliers, and you do really well, really well by screwing them, imagine how successful that's going to make you next season. Not so much. Imagine you go on a date and you have a brilliant time and the other person doesn't have a very good time. Not really going to get another date, are you? And it's the same in business or life or anything. You have to create value, not profit. Profit's okay. That can be a byproduct of the value that you create. But you can't be the only one that gets it. It can't just be about you making profit. You've got to provide value in far more than just some tawdry financial statement. This is a landing page for Microsoft. Anyone still remember them? This was 2013. It was December 2013. And I know the date exactly, because I was sitting in my office, and actually I went outside to the outer office, and I used someone else's computer, and it took me to the Apple landing page, right? Because obviously I wouldn't know anybody that uses a PC. So I went to the Apple landing page, and I looked at it, I paused for a minute, and then I thought, oh, I'll just check Microsoft. So I had a look at Microsoft, and this is what I saw. You know, you could probably design that, but only if your phone was 10 years old and you were 3 years old, because otherwise I don't think you could do anything anywhere near as bad as that. Look at it. $25 deal of the day, buy more shit, cheap graphics, and by the way, it's red and green because it's Christmas, just in case you forgot, all right? That was Microsoft. This was Apple. So Apple recognized the value that their consumers would respect. So Microsoft thought a deal of the day for $25 was important, and Apple felt it was more important to commemorate somebody. And of course, Apple want to sell computers. It's not a charity. But they recognize value over profit. Because without it, the profit's going to be short-lived and it's not going to work so well. It'll come as no surprise to you that I've been fired. Hands up, who else has been fired in this room? Good. See, that makes me feel better. Hands up who's been fired more than once. More than twice? More than 3 times? No. Well, maybe. You're going to get fired. You should stand up for something. All the things I've said, right? You're going to have a boss or a colleague or someone who's not going to agree with you, and their job is going to be to steal the oxygen from the room and insert buzzwords. That's what they do. They sit around the table. All they do is repeat what the last person said, add a buzzword, and steal the oxygen. They're terrible. And I feel bad for them. They shouldn't be there. But they're going to win sometimes, going to get some lackluster, spineless boss that's going to give in to them, and you're going to get fired. I nearly got fired over this. So we all know what John Galliano did a few years ago. Terrible, terrible thing. Said those deplorable, awful comments to that woman. And he was fired, and he should have been. And he went into rehab, actually went into rehab. And he atoned for what he did. And he really spent 2 years learning about what he'd done that was so terrible and making up for it. And I met him after those 2 years, and I thought, yeah, I believe you. I think that you deserve a second chance, so I invited him in. Unfortunately, there was a lot of other people who felt very, very strongly differently about it. And it became a situation where there was no peaceful way of doing it, which is really tragic. But along the way, there was massive campaigns to get me fired. There was online petitions. There were people in my office screaming at me. It was like, it's very difficult to overestimate how awful that situation was. And I could have got fired over it. And frankly, I think the leadership would have fired me had that not been likely to cause an even bigger situation. So it was like, play it all down. The point is, I don't care. I don't care. I was right. I was right, and fuck them. Because you've got to stand up for something. And that's what I believe in. So that's what I did. Of course, it's not all controversial. You've also got to do some good. The thing about doing good, right, is that I know if you're doing good or not, because I've got a phone. So if I look at your store and I think, oh, what's this massive multi-outlet store doing that's helping the world? I can look it up. And if I'm not satisfied with it and I look up next door, then, I can make that comparison. And you can't hide it. Because we can spot, we've got a very active CSR office and blah, 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 we're doing this, and you're not really doing anything. You have to actually do good. You have to do something good. Now, H&M get a lot of grief about selling cheap clothes. And they should. They should. But of course, as Rick pointed out, when I spoke at the event the other week, I pointed out to the crowd, it's not the fashion industry's fault. It's your fault because you are the fashion industry. Because everybody is. Everyone that's wearing clothes is the fashion industry. All right? So it's all your fault. So don't blame them. They're just giving you what you asked for. But with H&M, I would say that they're doing a lot to try and address that. They do a lot of recycling. They're doing a lot with their production chain, etc. And I won't go into it at length. But the point is they're trying. They're trying, and they're prepared to take criticism. And I know that because it's all over their website and all over the news, and they will engage. There are other companies that are not doing good. They're not, and I know who they are. Here's another one, Starbucks. So it's funny, when I came across this picture, it had been when Howard Schultz had said, if you don't support same-sex marriage, sell our stock. Because we don't need you. We don't need you as investors. And if you want to buy your coffee somewhere else, that's fine with me too. Because we believe in same-sex marriage. And you know, that terrible thing happened recently in Philadelphia where the two African-American gentlemen were chucked out by the cops because they weren't buying coffee. So instead of making some sort of mealy-mouthed apology, they shut the whole place and gave everyone training. Now, we can argue whether that was enough, perhaps not, but it was a lot more than almost any other group would do. And the point was, I don't think it was just purely for profit. I mean, they're a corporation, everything's for profit. But it seemed like it was a bit more than that. You know, I felt like there was some actual genuine attrition there. So when you think of Starbucks, you think of that. Yes, you think about that deplorable incident, but there is a response to it as well. And that's what I mean about doing good. You've got to do something good. You've got to be seen to do good because everyone's got a phone and everyone knows everything all the time. Here's another one, right? Do it. Do something. Don't just talk. Don't have a meeting. Don't have a really good... I just came from a board meeting, right, this group that I help. And we were coming up with ideas. And every time we came up with an idea, the president of the board was like, yeah, but who's going to do it? And it'd go really quiet. Because of the 10 people around the room that were having great ideas, there wasn't anyone that wanted to actually do it. Which means the ideas are worthless. Pointless. Do it. Do something. Like, just do it. Well, this thing I was at the other day, I made everyone get up at this point. But you lot were already standing up a minute ago, so I won't. But I said, get up, turn around, and say to the person behind you what you're going to do. Do something. Like, just don't go to work and sit down and send some email. Oh, I know what. You know what drives me really crazy? This has driven me crazy for a long time. Thoughts and prayers. Fuck. Fucking thoughts and prayers. And the one that's just as bad as that is, I stand with you. I stand with you on that. No, you don't. You sit on your fat ass eating chips on the couch in your shorts with you doing that and click your phone. Like, that's not doing it. That's not doing something. That's just fucking sitting there clicking on your phone. This is what I do. So, I'm not angry. I am a bit, but I'm not. When I left Parsons, I had a lot of friends, really, really good people. And I thought, how can I get everyone together and continue the conversations we've been having? Because they're really important to me, because things happen. If you get together and you talk, and then you actually are the kind of people that do something, then things can happen. So I created this, Fashion Culture Design. And I'll show you it. This community is all about conversation.
This is the unconference, so you can say whatever you want.
Now kids think Ralph and Jay are corny as hell.
Yeah, anything Simon does, I'm always excited to be part of it.
I think WeChat is going to take over the world.
It's something beautiful, but we don't know if it's going to work. They're going to get angry, they're going to get passionate. Might as well just jump into see now buy.
Yeah, I've never felt seen out by now.
Ivanka, a fascinating figure because she provides the album cover for her toxic father.
I have never been called an idiot so many times.
I don't think that you should do something because you're marketing.
In an altruistic way.
Yes, you don't show off doing good.
I'm burnt out like 5 out of 7 days a week. Monday to Friday.
I want to show really quiet places and you can drink and you can have fun.
Just start playing, make mistakes.
I mean, he never was. I know he discovered all the popular.
There's a new velvet rope now and it is called FOMO.
This is the beginning of the conversation, not the end of it. So I did that, and what happened was we got people together, and instead of people having idiots like me on stage giving speeches, we actually had smart people in little groups like this, and I asked a very provocative question of each of them, but not about their own company. So it was more like a think tank. than anyone talking about their own business. So just one of the examples of what happened was the very first one we did was about beauty. I said, what does beauty look like now that it's not 32 skinny white girls walking up and down a runway? And we had Ashley Graham and Alec Weck and Mickey Boardman and Ivan Bart and Gillian Smith and James Scully. And some of you may know that James Scully, he got very emotional and impassioned about the plight of models. And he went on, of course, to make that a cause célèbre with his work with Balenciaga and then the Model Alliance, etc. So it gave rise to things that actually happened, which I was very proud of. My latest project is this. So having gone from being a designer to being the dean to then starting fashion culture design, now I've started We Design. And the point of We Design is that you can probably tell I believe in design, right? I do. And I want to share it with people that don't have access to it. And a lot of people can't afford to go to Parsons. It's a beautiful school, it's incredible, but it's also in New York and it's very expensive. So if you're not able to come to New York or afford the prices, We Design exists to give people that education. So we're connecting individual students with individual professors wherever they are in the world so they can teach online, one-on-one. We're also doing summer programs in China for kids that can't afford to go to an expensive school. We're going to be putting design into executive ed. Because you remember how MBAs used to be really important and now they're not so much because everyone wants an MFA. Because if you've got an MBA, you can't think like a designer. Someone should write a rap about that. We're going to put design into them. So we're working with Tsinghua in China, which many of you may know is like the Harvard of China. And then also, we're going to be working in international schools in China. So, I mean, I keep mentioning China. I do a lot of work there. I'm very passionate about it because here's one of the other things I didn't think I'd say. When I go to Europe, right, I come from there. I love, well, it's Europe right now. It won't be soon. I love it, but it does feel a little bit like the weight of history is bearing down on you and crushing you, and you can't do some things because like the whole infrastructure of the medieval town is built to prevent them, right? And it's beautiful. I have no criticism of it, but it's not exactly the perfect hotbed for new ideas. So that's true. And then you come to America, where I live, and I'm very passionate about living here, and you're in a beautiful building like this, but this is, you know, it's been around for a while, and it's not exactly new, and it's not necessarily ideal. But then when you go to the new world, the new world, everything's brand new. It's bonkers out there. If you can think of it, they'll build it. It's insane. Some of the buildings, you just can't even fathom them. So anyway, sorry, so that's why I go to China a lot. I have a lot of fun doing this, and I think that if what we're doing isn't fun, we probably should go and be bankers or something equally odious, because you'd make more money, it's probably not as hard work, and it would be, you know, if that's what you want out of it, you should go and do that. Here's an example of fun, right? This is the Gucci campaign from, like, I don't know, 2 seasons ago. They, instead of having the usual ad, they got a bunch of people together who are not models, gave them some clothes, put them in a nightclub and had them dancing. And I honestly, I look at this and it just gives me joy. So I didn't dance then. It does happen. That's why I put dancer on there. I didn't realize I was going to do it, and one day I was giving a talk and I showed this and I found myself dancing across the stage. I spared you that. You're welcome. It's all obvious. Everything I've said to you is perfectly obvious. You already knew all of it. But do me a favor, get your phone out and take a picture of that. Because as much as it's obvious, you'll forget it. All right? And I prefer not to have people stare at their phones, but this is the moment when you should take a picture. And just ask yourself, am I doing that? Am I doing those things? Because you should be, and I bet you're not. I forget them sometimes, but I try not to. But the best people, the smartest people in the world, the most successful ones, they do all those all the time because they don't think about them. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my story. Thank you.